Electronic music. If you've seen my awesome birthday video, you should know that electronic music is one of my favorite music genres ever. This is a type of music where computers, machines, DJ booths, desk jockeys, and other electronic instruments are the lyrics to our ears. Whenever they make us move our bodies and dance, show us off to creativity and or originality, or bring us to a new world. This kind of stuff is my shit. Whether it's techno, house, ambient, trance, rave, or any other subgenre of electronic music, I'm going to choose my top 10 personal picks of my favorite electronic albums. And here are the rules. They have to show so much greatness and awesomeness that define the genre. One artist per album rule. They have to be an album made by an artist or a group, so no various artist album. Sorry Cydetic Rave Perfect Best Plus, I would have put you in number 1 in this list if it wasn't for this rule. And most of all, this is my list, not yours. If your favorite is not in this list, don't bitch about it. So with that out of the way, let's get started with this list. Starting at number 10, it's Dig Your Own Hole by the Chemical Brothers, released in 1997. And this is one album where many critics have given this album high scores. Well, the reason for that is because it has one of the best beats that many of us has listened to in the music industry. Sometimes when there's dance music that's really popular, it's only good for its time, and it gets old really fast and people would just want to forget about it. Which is the main problem about electronic music nowadays. But this album aged very well. If there was an album that was perfect to listen to in the streets, Dig Your Own Hole is the one in my book, because tracks like PQ, Dig Your Own Hole, Don't Stop the Rock, Block Rockin' Beats sounds like something that you would see from street performers and dancers, play basketball with your friends, or freestyle. This album is the full package. There's something about the Chemical Brothers that made this album so great that I want to move my body to what each song is representing. But just to let you know, my theme song, Galvanized by the Chemical Brothers, is not in Dig Your Own Hole. But the reason why I put Dig Your Own Hole in this list as the Chemical Brothers' best album is because out of all the albums they have created, I think Dig Your Own Hole was pretty much their best line of tracks. At number 9, I have to put out my very first album I ever bought, and that is Play by MOBY, released in 1999. This album takes me way back to how MOBY used to make good music, how awesome scratching samples was, and how much the DJs rocked the house back in the day. We had that everywhere back in the 90s, but MOBY made Play a very unique album by showing off dark soundings, old school blues mixed with hip hop beats, and what MOBY is greatly known for, his emotional songs. One of the best tracks that represents MOBY's emotional behavior is Porcelain on track number 3. This is the one song that will always remind me of growing up in Korea. But if you really want crazy dance music, there are plenty of it in Play. But you should check out Body Rock, which is still today one of the most catchiest hip-hop instrumental songs I have ever listened to. MOBY's Play is the one album that introduced me to the music industry, and it's perfect for nostalgia for me. I'm so happy I grew up with this album, and even more proud to see that this album has never lost its appeal for me. At number 8, we have Cross by Justice, released in 2007. 2007 was a pretty great year for music, with so many memorable albums released, and this is one of them. This one was probably one of the biggest debut electronic albums that has ever been released at the time. Justice's album debut reminded me of Daft Punk's Homework because they were so good, the audience put all their attention on them. This album's theme was disco mixed with opera, which explains why there are Christianity references in this album. What this album is most known for is DANCE, where Justice made a sample of a choir singing lyrics of many of Michael Jackson's lyrics into one song. But this album is more than just DANCE, where they have opera-like disco songs like Genesis, Waters of Nazareth, and so much more that felt like a party in church. More like a Bible study group gone wild. But either way, this album made a huge impact in 2007 and made it reach to number 8. Coming at number 7, we have The Fat of the Land by the Prodigy, released in 1997. Now this album is awesome. Most people stereotype electronic music as just being a genre just for dancing, but not this album, because this album is like metal, all head-banging awesome. And to be clear, this album is categorized as hardcore techno, not hip-hop. The reason why this album is called The Fat of the Land is because the term guns versus butter. Since the Prodigy are a political raging electronic group, they say butter is the reason why our land is fat, and we need guns for war and protection. There are so many tracks in this album that makes you feel superior, with tracks such as Smack My Bitch Up, diesel power, and Firestarter, which feels like you're raining chaos as you are listening to it. But at the same time, maintained the creativity from their previous albums like Minefields, which kept the magic for what the Prodigy used to be known for. Since then, the Prodigy hasn't been the same since this album, since this is, in my opinion, their best album. The Fat of the Land is placed at number 7. Coming at number 6, it's Demon Days by the Gorillaz, released in 2005. Now, this is where I have a lot of disagreeing with this pick, because many people don't consider this as an electronic album, but in some ways, it is an electronic album. Believe me, this album has separate genres like electronica, alternative rock, trip hop, and more. But overall, since all the tracks have electronic effects and plenty of electronic songs, then Demon Days made it on this list. This is one of the best albums I have ever listened to, and it has the catchiest tunes I have ever heard in music, which is the reason why the Gorillaz are so popular today. Hearing 2D's blue voice has a lot of soul, and his lyrics direct me on how I should feel in each song. Songs like Kids with Guns, Dirty Harry, and Feels Good Inc. has a lot of groove, soul, and emotion. But what makes it electronic is songs like DARE and Demon Days that really sounds like really good dance tracks that you would want to listen to when you go clubbing. Demon Days is my favorite Gorillaz album, and it deserves to be at number 6. Coming in at number 5, I have to give it to the queen of electronic music, and that is Homogenic by Bjork, released in 1997. Most fans would say Post was their best album, and I do agree that it's really a work of art. But Homogenic was more of an art form that showed Bjork's true talents with her amazing vocals and directing her music. It was purely creative, where she was able to take the electronic music into an artistic form. I must admit that the first song, Hunter, was a pretty bad start, but when you get to Joga, was probably one of the most artistic and dramatic song I have ever listened to. You will learn how seriously this album has been taken. There are so many epic, emotional tracks in this album, like Joga, All Neon Like, Immature, Alarm Call, and the most epic song of all is Full of Love. And I love how magical and not so typical these songs really are. This is truly Bjork's greatest masterpiece. And there are a lot of people that really dislike Bjork because of her weirdness, and it's pretty ironic that these people like Lady Gaga more. But let's be clear, Bjork is a mad genius, and I think that it's about time that people need to take her music at a more serious level. And Bjork's Homogenic is the prime example of a music turning into an art form. Now, speaking of serious level, coming at number 4, it's Kid A by Radiohead, released in 2000. And I know what you're thinking. What the fuck is an album made by an alternative rock band doing on this list? Yes, Radiohead is most known for alternative rock, but did you know that they made an electronic album and it has been considered by many as the greatest album of the decade? It's true. This album was truly a masterpiece of its own. Radiohead, unlike other bands, pushed the boundaries of music and created something absolutely brilliant. Sometimes when an artist changes to another genre of music from what they're known for, they immediately lose it and begin to suck. But Kid A was something that Tom York and Radiohead managed to pull off and created something that has never been heard before. Yes, there are songs like How to Disappear Completely that was rock, but they did use electronic instruments in their other albums like OK Computer, but with Kid A, they extended it to another level to make this less rock and more electronic. Each song is its own atmosphere because they all really does bring you to another world and gives you images in your head while you're listening to it. The best track in Kid A was Idiotique, and it's probably one of the best electronic songs I have ever listened to. I don't expect all of you guys to actually like this album, but since its release, it divided fans and listeners alike, because some couldn't understand the complexity that this album has, but on the other hand, many felt the magic and the wonder listening to this entire album and proclaims Kid A as one of the most inspirational albums ever. My only problem with this album, which is why it's number 4, is the ending, which I didn't really like, but nevertheless, this has to be one of, if not the greatest Radiohead album ever. Another album that caught me by storm is number 3, Introducing by DJ Shadow, released in 1996. Now, who said sampling on the DJ booth could not be a work of art? Well, DJ Shadow accomplished something that has never been done before by making the very first fully sampled album and created some of the most wonderfully well done work of music. Introducing itself changed a lot of people's lives back then and throughout many years because of the level of creativity, originality, and how dark it really was. This is, without a doubt, the most innovative album I have ever listened to. I just love how DJ Shadow uses samples as his lyrics, instruments, and man, each and every one of those songs in Introducing had more than one sample, and he must have given everything he's got to make something so beautiful for every track in Introducing. There are really dark tracks such as Organ Donor, Steam Long Stem, and jazzy funky tracks such as What Does Your Soul Look Like and Midnight in a Perfect World. That was absolutely astounding every time I listened to it. Since his debut, DJ Shadow has never made anything better than this. Because let's face it, his new stuff sounds like generic mainstream hip-hop that totally sucks. Well, I guess that hip-hop has never sucked in '96 after all. But nevertheless, its reputation of being one of the greatest albums of the '90s is clearly deserved, and its innovation has clearly defined its greatness. Coming at number 2, it's the one album that changed electronic music for what it is today, and it's Selected Ambient Works 85-92 by Aphex Twin, released in 1993. With only a keyboard and a computer, Aphex Twin, or Richard David James, created such a beauty of wonder. I mean literally, this album sounds so inspirational, which really does remind you on how much of an artist Aphex Twin is, minus the disturbing parts. SAW 85-92 has more beauty than any other album on this list. Sure, Aphex Twin's debut album sounds a little dated in today's standards, but you have to remember that this album came out in 1993 and it had one of the most revolutionary sound of the time. I've been in the best places in the world like the Tokyo Tower, New York City, and Seoul Tower listening to all these tracks in this album, and to me it's the perfect album to listen when you're going to a very neat location. It really does create this atmosphere where you are in a great place, but you need some tunes to create the experience. But no matter what your idea of paradise is, this album is always a welcoming tune for me. Songs like Extol, Thaw, Pulse Width, Green Glax, Elias Fawn, We Are Music Makers, Scott Key's Seventh Path were some of the best ambient songs ever created. Wait a sec, that's most of the tracks in this album. That's the reason why it's very high in this list. I know that there are a couple of people that would say that the Richard D. James album is Aphex Twin's best album, and I can agree in so many levels that it's probably one of the most creative as well as innovative album I've ever listened to. It's just that Selected Ambient Works 85-92 was just more gentle and atmospheric, and it's albums like this that gave Aphex Twin the reputation of being the most inventive and also an influential figure of electronic music. And finally, number 1, Discovery by Daft Punk, released in 2001. Out of all the electronic albums in this list, this one has the most memorable and catchiest tunes that you can find anywhere in electronic music. So memorable, in fact, that people that doesn't know anything about electronic music, they know almost every popular track in this album. I know that most critics put Daft Punk's debut album, Homework, as their best album, but yet it's also a great album. And Human After All was probably one of the most badass electronic albums ever. But Discovery put that awesomeness at a higher level. Daft Punk made this album mix with other genres with electronic music, where there's at least one track for everyone in this album. Like for disco dancers, the unforgettable One More Time, rock lovers, Aerodynamic, love music fans, Digital Love and Something Between Us, pop listeners, Crimson Dolls and High Life, and R&B fans would love Face to Face and Too Long. This album from beginning to end was very enjoyable to listen to. And that's the problem I have with a lot of albums, including the ones in this list. Because there's at least one or a couple of tracks that I just don't like to listen to and really need to skip it. But Daft Punk's Discovery is one of the few albums in the world that I don't have a problem with each and every track. This album was based on Daft Punk's childhood in the 70s through the 80s, and this album grew massive popularity and worldwide fame. This album was so good that it was made into an anime film called Interstellar 5555, which is the visual realization of Discovery, and it is one of the best music movies I have ever seen. Even if I forgot to put at least one electronic album in this list, whatever that electronic album may be, they don't match the greatness that Daft Punk's Discovery has, and there was never an album after this that I grew so fanatically. Pitchfork Media put Discovery in number 3 in their top 200 best albums of the 2K decade, and its reputation of being up there is really deserved. It's still a fantastic album that I still enjoy listening, and it's one of my favorite albums of all time, and that's the reason why Daft Punk's Discovery is placed at number 1 in my top 10 favorite electronic albums. So that's my top 10 favorite electronic albums ever.